Welcome to Through Their Eyes Living Black History. My name is Michaela Singleton. Black History Month is an opportunity to celebrate and reflect on all the progress African Americans have made in this country towards equality. However, through all the beauty and all the culture, all the pride behind the Black community, there still lies a larger society, perhaps unaware of those everyday barriers that still impede that ultimate goal of equality. We invite you now to listen to the everyday lives of 6 men and women active in the Black community and the Capital Region.
My name is Angelo Justice Maddox Jr., owner of Fresh and Fly Clothing, Mr. Motivation Money Making Monday.
Bishop Avery Comathia, pastor of the Elijah Missionary Church, Albany, New York, and the founder of Pastors on Patrol.
I'm Jamela Anderson, and I am the founder of Free Food Fridge Albany. I'm a community activist.
Marcus Pryor, community activist. Extremely pleased to be here with everyone.
My name is Trayvon Jackson. I'm president of Blue Light Development Group and executive director of the African American Cultural Center.
I'm Dee Collin. I'm a poet, visual artist, and educator living in the Capital Region.
These people share their unique and yet all too familiar experiences with us and with you, hoping to shed light on ways everyone can do better for each other. We start our conversation about conversation, those little everyday words and phrases that add up to feeling unwanted and unheard.
I come from a little town called Ravenna, New York, and I was born and raised in the country outside of Albany. And growing up, you see and hear different things growing up, and it really didn't click. But later on, you come to find out, wait a minute.
There's like certain phrases and things that people say that you just know you can't have a conversation with them.
Now, does anyone here have an example of when you're in a conversation with somebody and say they pull out the phrase, "Oh, I'm colorblind," or "Oh, I'm not racist, but," and there's always a ... at the end.
See my color, see it,
Please.
know it,
Please.
experience it, understand its beauty.
Don't tolerate me.
Please
don't tolerate me.
It would do me a lot. It would do me a service if you didn't.
Absolutely.
Fine.
They're not speaking the truth. The only people that are colorblind is somebody that is actually physically colorblind, and if they mentioning that they're colorblind, then they see all the colors very vividly. They just don't want to acknowledge it for what it really is and the things that we have to go through on a daily basis as being on the other side of that color.
I don't see your color is really, I don't see you. That's really all it is adding color to the sentence doesn't do anything for it. It's really just saying, I don't see you.
I find it insulting. I think that while people don't really understand what that comment means, that microaggression, it's like a diminishment of who we are.
Some of the undertones that people will use, one of the greatest ones is some of my best friends are Black.
I heard that yesterday. I literally heard that yesterday.
That's how I get invited to things sometimes.
Yeah.
I just got invited somewhere with a line like that. Oh, did you want to come? I told them I had a friend that was Black. They would know what was going on. So I would encourage people to have the courage to continue with that thought process and figure out, are you colorblind, or do you just not want to say you like Black people? Are you colorblind, or is it difficult for you to articulate around your friends that you appreciate this culture you're not from? Are you colorblind, or do you think you're slumming if you're coming to a cookout? What are you really saying to yourself? And that inner voice is sometimes the most dangerous.
A 2020 Gallup poll found 30% of Black Americans confirm someone recently diminishing them in some way, and 9% added they'd also recently been called a slur or insulted. That turns our attention to a much more sensitive and cautioning subject for our viewers, the use of racial slurs.
I think it's also crucial that we address how we address each other. Because sometimes the ideology is that if they hear us talk to each other a way, they think, well, why can't I talk to you that way?
Yes.
I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with you. I also think that's kind of a cop-out. I think it's also generational. My generation, I don't find many white people using the N-word, but the younger generations, the kids, even the white kids will be going, my N, my na. At the same time, I don't think that we really have an issue in terms of communication with words, because you wouldn't walk up to my mother and call my mother mommy. I get to use that. I get to use that because it comes from a place of personal, of feeling, of power with respect to the word. It comes from us co-opting it and using it to find power within our own community. And no, not everybody gets to do that. Those people that are using it without understanding what that word means are still using a slur, are still using something that generates pain in our community. And you don't get to do it. And quite frankly, why do you even want to use that word?
You know, there's a huge, much larger conversation around that, but I think the disrespect that can happen within the community to each other is something that we need to check if it does happen, and not allow people who, you know, white people specifically, not treating us the way that they may see us treat each other, because then it gives them liberties to do so.
My first acknowledgement is to uplift you, because words have power. So when I'm speaking, I'm peace king, peace queen, you know, I'm empowering you, I'm rising you up. And when that word is used amongst me, even if I check it with my brother or my sister, I understand it and where it's coming from. But when it's used by another race, I understand that that's coming from another place, because we don't share that common reality.
It's not so much that it's an example for someone else. It is a legitimate impediment to our transformational work as a culture. And I think reframing it that way is helpful, because it's not as though we're trying to patch holes so we can be treated better. I'm trying to figure out how to speak to your heart so we can be better as a people.
I think it's pretty fair to say that many have heard, oh, you can be anything or get anything if you work hard enough, that there are no barriers to achieve success if you just do enough. And so I really want to open that up to the floor. Do you feel that there is still a glass ceiling that is kept on top of Black success?
Absolutely.
Take the mics off.
Trying to do the art that I do while also talking about my experience living as a Black woman in America. Because I talk about that glass ceiling, I see it in how much I might get paid as an artist, how much I might get offered as an artist, what opportunities might come my way. You know, I get a lot of gigs in February, but I'm a poet all year, and I'm Black all year.
Not so much the glass ceiling, but the starting line. The fact that as a society, as people, we're already starting so far behind the traditional starting line that, please, glass ceiling? Can we get to like the paper first floor?
When we're in those kinds of professional settings, do you feel that you have the license, the ability to speak about racial issues? Or if you see an injustice, do you feel you have as much license as you would like to be able to speak about it? Or do you feel that there is that pressure to tone it down, quote unquote?
That is a real-time thing. Some people have anxiety, and understandably so, when people with power and resources are diminishing them openly in their face.
And most people that use that terminology of pulling the race card are the ones that's pretty much guilty
Of being racist. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, exactly.
So when you're on to truth, when you're telling the truth and speaking the truth, they don't want to hear that, so they quote unquote say you're pulling the race card.
Try to knock you down a peg.
Yes.
They want to lessen you. They want to dehumanize you. They want to make you feel like your experience is not valid.
Right.
Like
you should be happy where you are.
Exactly. You should be happy that you're here.
It's an interesting point, because I'm aware that those challenges and those restrictions and those efforts will exist, but I speak as myself, earnestly, autonomously, with skills, and unapologetically as a Black man. And that is my first and foremost step in all of these rooms. And I understand that I'm blessed to be in a position to take that step without some of the everyday fears that the people right outside this building have when they walk. And they think, should I have this conversation with the boss who can fire me?
Right.
Should I have this conversation with the police officer who is treating me wrong?
We have a moral obligation to speak out against injustice, even on the job, no matter what our plight in life.
Coming up next, we tackle prejudice surrounding physical appearance.
Regardless of what it is that I do, if I am seen actively participating in Black culture, I get treated differently.
Our conversation turns to stereotypes and how imagery in media is representing the Black community to the world when we return to Through Their Eyes, Living Black History. Our conversation continues from being heard to being seen. What happens when judgment of your appearance stops you before you can even speak? Has anyone ever here, I'm sure, had an experience of you feel that you are expected to act a certain way, or you feel that there is a perception of who you are as a person or how you might be based on, say, your manner of dress, the way you do your hair?
I am a Black woman, and I, at any point, am seen if I do anything, if I gesture too much, if I raise my voice, if I listen to rap, if I listen to R&B, if I watch a Black TV show, if regardless of what it is that I do, if I am seen actively participating in Black culture, I get treated differently by white people.
It's very intentional how I show up in a room. When I was teaching middle and high school, I show up to work, my fro picked out all the way, just because I was very intentional about how my students saw me. Because my students looked like me, so it was just I wanted them to feel seen.
Too oftentimes, I've been, looked at differently or probably seen in a different manner than other than who I was just because of the way that I dress. I always, seem like I fit the description type because I wear hoodies, I wear, I got the Jordans on, got the ripped jeans or what have you. As time has gone on and more progress has been made by successful people in the Black and African American community that look just like me and doesn't fall into the category of the regular suit and tie, it has been a little bit more acceptable because now people have to figure out like, who is this guy now? This is my regular day function and how I get things done. But when I dress up, people react to it differently, and that dynamic also still takes place.
Yeah. And my experience was different. Mm-hmm. I remember distinctly I had to preach over in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I had my clergy attire, and I got pulled over. And I rolled down the window and I said, "Officer, is there something wrong?" He goes, "You have drugs in here?"
Black is the description. It's like.
So it's different scenarios.
Right.
Yeah. And that Black is the assumption. Mm-hmm. And that's the experience that I've had is, kind of no matter how you show up, the Blackness is what comes with the assumptions. Mm-hmm. I'm the harbinger of doom. My Blackness is the indicator that something is wrong. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you make that more palatable besides loving yourself.
Many harmful stereotypes have been splashed across TV, magazines, and the internet for decades. While much has changed in the form of representation, I wonder to our panelists how much that changes overall perception. Do we feel that there's still a lot of room for improvement there, just the way that Black people are portrayed in media?
On the one hand, it's because we're getting in more positions to actually tell our own stories. But then on the other hand, I see it because of major corporations is they want to get into the buying power of the Black community.
I think you're speaking to tone. I hear that, I think of tone, I think of tonality, and even to the point of if we just drop some Black people in this, then now we've met the quota, we've met the understanding, they're engaged, they're involved.
I used to watch a lot of Disney movies growing up, and I love The Lion King, but the characters are all, there's no humans. In Princess and the Frog, I was excited, there's a Black princess now, and for most of the movie, we see her as a frog. So, there's progress, but then there's this little thing that's just like hanging on, where you're just like, well, we got a little bit, we didn't get like the whole thing.
It is very clear as Black people, I'm sure we maybe clock it a lot sooner than other people might, but I can tell when I'm watching a movie and something isn't right about the Black character, or you can tell even if it's a full Black cast that it's written by white people and it's for the digestion of white people.
One of the people that I admire so much Sidney Poitier. There was a movie called In the Heat of the Night. And he did an interview just prior to his passing. He said before he would portray that role, he was not gonna portray it to bring negativity to his blackness. If we don't have a sense of who we are and what we stand for, what we will not tolerate, then we may fall back into that era. And that movie really moved me because I'm saying this person had the nerve, the integrity.
As we consider the barriers keeping the Black minority from feeling fully accepted by society, we also turn inward, examining the division within the Black community, those internal struggles that can set our progress back.
So it took me a really long time to unravel that and to appreciate what I look like.
The dialogue on colorism when Through Their Eyes, Living Black History returns. There are many shades of being Black. An understated but still constant pattern of comparing tones leads us to the subject of colorism. Far removed from the days of the paper bag test, a 2006 University of Georgia study still found employers showed preferential hiring practices towards minorities of lighter skin tone. Everything from hiring and firing prison terms to the perception of beauty, societal insistence on favoring lighter skin tones can breed resentment and change the tone of how Black community members treat each other.
I think the first point of acknowledgement is that colorism is an inherent reflection of white supremacy, which has nothing to do with the genesis of Black people's ideas or concepts. Black people did not birth white supremacy simply by existing. So the colorism that we experience is inherent to the struggle and the generational mindsets that we've lived and existed under.
I think there's a lot of unlearning that has happened. And I know for myself, you know, when I was a kid, I remember I had a crush on this boy in my class, and I was the darkest girl in my class. And it was 7th grade, and this new girl came to our school, and she was light skinned. And the first day that I met her, I said, oh, my crush is gonna wanna be with you instead of me. And I was right. And so it took me a really long time to unravel that and to appreciate what I look like.
You know, psychologically, you know what I'm saying, that gets into your mind. It's like getting positive reinforcements because a person is lighter skinned. Then, you know, we internalize that, whether consciously or unconsciously, to think that, hey, the light skin is preferred.
But I do think it's important for us to reflect on what colorism means to our origins as a people. We do not view darker skinned, diasporic Black peoples as being tied to many of the cultures that we share in this country. For a person whose ancestry goes back generations to the slave ships that landed here, your color can be inherently linked to Western ideas.
What we're talking about is trauma. You know, we're talking about personal trauma, we're talking about collective trauma. We are carrying a lot of trauma that has to be unpacked.
And I think that's what's going on now. We're addressing the outside, but we're not addressing the internal. Within our communities, how we treat each other, how we talk to each other, how we engage with each other.
As our conversation comes to a close, we ask all our participants to reflect on what good they hope this dialogue will do.
To be able to take an opportunity for others who don't see through our lens to see the beauty of our experience.
The group's final thoughts when we come back on Through Their Eyes, Living Black History. Final thoughts. What do you feel that learning from Black history, learning from everything we've talked about today, what do you want people to take away?
I think my hope is that our work here today, having this conversation with each other, is taken in love as a catalyst for someone to educate themselves, accept others as they are, or have the courage to show up as who they are.
This conversation can be a call to action for your own personal work of what you need to do next.
I would hope that people start to look at all these viewpoints and internalize them, but mainly you know, I want us as a people to just look within ourselves and make sure that we have the building of our own community so that we can stand as that fortitude.
And I think we have an obligation to teach our children our culture of who we are as Black Americans, as Black people. I think that we can unite. We have resources within our communities and that we need to start utilizing.
I hope that this reminds other Black folks of our power and our strength, and that there are people all around to take care of you, whether you meet them or not.
We have enhanced culture and food and art in every aspect. That we focus so much on the pain of our experience, and we don't get. And maybe that's the point now of Black History Month. Not for us to understand our 2, 3, 4, 5 pages in a history book, but to be able to take an opportunity for others who don't see through our lens to see the beauty of our experience.
Yes.